And for those of you online, I was just giving instructions to people in the building here. We're going to get started in just a moment. Everybody online was wondering what they were missing. Good, so just settling in, appreciate that we're here together in community. It's really a minor miracle that we can gather folks from around the country, all of us here in the metro area of Minneapolis and St. Paul. Yeah, and it's not perfect. No one expects it to be perfect, but it really is beautiful that we can gather around these teachings that people have been interested in for a long time now, 2,500 years or so. And in a way, it's, I consider so much of what the Buddha taught, although very subtle, it's really just human common sense. How to take care of this mind and body in a deep way, in a subtle way. What to do with this human life. Because as you're all, I'm sure, sensing, each of us in our own way, if we don't bring this wise, clear presence to our lives, we just operate out of habit. And, I don't know about your habits, but our habits aren't necessarily very wise and deep. So we're going to settle into some meditation time now. And the first thing we want to do is just deeply valuing the healing qualities of just the simplicity of settling, dropping the load, allowing the heart and mind to become more simple, realizing for this period of time, this 30 or 35 minutes, that it's actually safe to put down all of our duties and responsibilities. Of course, we'll probably have some worries, some things that seem unfinished. But maybe it's okay for this period of time to just put things down. So our first instruction that we've been exploring is keeping it as simple as possible initially, is this sustained present moment awareness. And I even encourage people just to experiment with a very simple technique like counting, just in a relaxed way. And you might just count with each exhalation, but you don't have to do it that way. And just following the thread of present moment awareness. And when you lose that thread of present moment awareness, just begin counting again with 1. And see, do you get to 6? Do you get to 16? Do you get to 33? Do you get to 195? Before the mind gets lost in thought or forgets that it's like this now. So remember, if you use a technique like counting, it's not about the counting. We're counting as a way of remembering to recognize the present moment. Because of course, the counting is happening in the present moment. So instead of focusing on doing the counting, it's more just recognizing the next count. Oh yeah, this is being known here and now in the present moment. And what really supports, 2 things really support the deepening of samadhi, this word that gets translated as concentration. It would be better translated as this unification of the mind and heart, the coming together, the gathering of the mind and heart. The 2 qualities that are most important are relaxation and alertness or interest. interest in the present moment. It's the continuity of present moment awareness that is the cause for the deepening of Samadhi. Again, whether you're counting or not, the invite is to sustain present moment awareness and just to learn what gets in the way, what allows you to sustain present moment awareness. And it's with this first instruction important to realize that sound or the sound of my voice or your own thoughts coming and going in your mind, that doesn't need to interrupt the continuity of present moment awareness. It's really important to discover that. So especially with this first instruction, we're learning a lot about receptivity. Everything arises and passes away here in the space of the present moment. And really appreciating, we can just begin again and again and again. And no need to get frustrated, no need to judge. Really learn how both relaxation and interest are mostly all we need to sustain present moment awareness. And if you find yourself doubting, just recognize that as the next thing happening in the present moment. And when you feel ready, sustained, silent, present moment awareness. So don't try to stop the thinking, but train the heart to be interested in the sense of silence, the sense of silent space at the present moment, the gap between thoughts, for example. But here we're learning to keep something very subtle in mind. Again, no need to be at war with your thoughts. Cultivate an interest in the silence, the stillness. And of course, in that silence, things will come and go, thoughts, sounds of thunder here in Minneapolis. But it's possible for the mind to stay interested in the silence, in the space, even as other things come and go. So with this second instruction, sustained, silent, present moment awareness, we're learning how to sustain present moment awareness without the support of skillful thoughts or counting. But you can always go back to using those supports if you need them. But when you feel ready, then take on this more subtle instruction, sustained, silent, present moment awareness. It's really the interest in the silence itself and the pleasure, the inner pleasure that comes as the heart begins to settle, more of a sense of wholeness. And as a support here, you can use a particular meditative anchor, a primary meditation object if you prefer, like feeling the breath come in and out, or a more receptive awareness of hearing, just allowing sounds to come and go, a more general receptive awareness of the whole body sitting. These are just three examples. What we're really doing is letting go. The mind is letting go of its need to attend to the different objects of experience that are coming and going, sounds and thoughts, and what can be useful is just to have one particular aspect of experience that the mind is attending to. And that's the meditation object that some people use. But you can also just stay with that sense of silence, that sense of space, empty space. And we'll continue now in silence. there is this natural process of settling. And it's really all about the heart following a thread of pleasure, but it's a kind of a unique kind of pleasure, inner pleasure, pleasure of simplicity, things becoming more simple, more empty of what is agitating and disturbing. So we're learning to trust this pleasure and to trust this natural process of shedding what's extra, allowing things in the heart to become as simple, as empty, as quiet as they can, without greed, without the need for aversion. In the same way a snow globe settles over time, there's also this inner natural process of the heart settling. We want to get to know it and support it. Start to get familiar with all the little habits that irritate and agitate and stir up the body and mind. And it's just a matter of refraining from those habits, knowing they don't help, that they're not needed at this time. So for a few more minutes, just doing the best we can, and let that be good enough. Take a couple moments to stretch your body, whatever you need to do to be comfortable. A big welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming today. So just something, a shift. I normally record on Sundays, but I'm going to start recording on Tuesday evenings because I don't have to wear a mask, and that the YouTube videos then will be me without a mask. I thought it might be a little bit more inviting for those folks who listen to the programs later. So anyway, if you're here on a Sunday and you want to listen, you can listen to the Tuesday talk, which is similar, but it won't be obviously exactly the same. It comes out differently in different times. And I've been talking, we took a break from looking at Ajahn Chah's wonderful book, The Collected Teachings of Ajahn Chah, this very famous Thai Buddhist monk, meditation teacher who died in the 1990s, to do a deeper dive into the Buddhist teachings on Samadhi, or concentration practice. And one thing should be obvious to us, which is what the world really needs, what you and I really need, what everybody needs, is more wholesome calm in their lives. And it's possible, it's true, that there are unwholesome ways that may look like calm, that people numb out this way or that way or disconnect, and on the surface it might look like calm. But there is an experience of the heart, body, mind being settled, and when you experience that, there's no doubt in our mind, oh, this is wholesome, this is useful. It's like really the kind of foundation or ground of any kind of competence to be settled. Just makes it better at whatever we have to do in life, including, in terms of our spiritual life, waking up and seeing what we're not seeing in life. Deepening our wisdom and understanding, which is the Buddha's path of awakening. This all depends on calm. And it's not like we put off the deepening of wisdom, but when you go through a day being relatively settled, you just learn so much more than when we go through a day being relatively scattered and agitated and disturbed, right? Because the being scattered, being disturbed, being agitated, it's sort of the big thing that we're filtering our experience through. So we don't actually see, we're mostly connecting with our own agitation and not really seeing what's happening around us, in our own mind and around us. I came across a few things recently. One of our community members, Tom Hawley, sent me this earlier this spring from David Wagoner. Stand still. The trees ahead and bushes beside you are not lost. Wherever you are is called here, and you must treat it as a powerful stranger. This kind of breaks my heart a little bit, the truth of it. That here is a powerful stranger, because we're normally not here, right? We're lost in thought, lost in our ideas about this and that. And it's interesting, like when we do drop in, and please don't wait, right? Because any moment is available for dropping in and realizing that the trees and bushes, the elements of the present moment now, like what we're seeing and hearing and feeling in our bodies, oh yeah, it's like this. What's interesting is that sometimes it feels a little weird to be present. And that's the telltale sign how mostly we're just lost in thought. I mean, isn't it strange that just like dropping in and sensing what we're sensing would feel weird or unfamiliar, or like, oh, I should be self-conscious being present, like I'm not supposed to be present. So that kind of can move our heart, like, oh, basically we need to change our value system in a deeper sense. Because we generally value things that give the thinking mind something to think and chew on. And what we don't value is the simplicity of just feeling that it's like this now, without the need. I mean, you can use skillful thoughts like I'm doing right now, at least trying to aim our hearts in that direction. But there's something, the actual experience of dropping in isn't dependent on thoughts. You don't need to be thinking, okay, I'm going to be present now in order to be present, right? It's sort of, as I mentioned in the guided instructions these last few weeks, loosely based on how Ajahn Brahm, a wonderful, famous Buddhist monk, Western Buddhist monk down in Australia, where he's teaching now, or the abbot of a monastery there. These instructions, to move from sustained present moment awareness to sustained silent present moment awareness, is that realizing that being present doesn't require mental activity. The mental activity is going to be mental activity. I mean, there really isn't, I haven't found, an off switch to mental activity. And as meditators, we're not trying to be against mental activity. We're just realizing if there's mental activity, it doesn't have to be, in a sense, the predominant thing the mind is attending to. It could just be like somebody left the radio on, And the thing is, normally when thoughts are arising, normally we take them personally. So it would feel, in that case, if we take our thoughts personally, then, I gotta listen, it's me. I'll ignore you, but I won't ignore me. Those are my thoughts. But we learn very quickly when we develop our practice, and I'm sure that maybe all of you, but most of you have some of that intuition already, that thoughts are just thoughts. You're not doing those thoughts, right? They come because of previous causes and conditions. There's some momentum to imagine this, to think about that, to compare, to, It's like sometimes, I'm sure I'm not alone, I see something coming out, like I'm actually saying some of the thoughts or acting on some of the thoughts, and we just see the sort of thread of my mom or the thread of my dad. Oh yeah, this is what they would have said, how they would have thought, and we're just like the continuation of our parents, of our ancestors, of our culture. The way our mind thinks is just the legacy of whatever went in. It's just like input in, output out, And so whatever those complex causes were for mental activity, just like the body too, it's just like inputs in, the genetic material and the kind of diet and all the exercise we didn't get or did get, and then you get a body like this. And we start to see that, and the more we realize that about mental activity, the more we can do that sustained, silent, present moment awareness. We can develop. It's a skill, or like a muscle. And if it doesn't get developed, we're not going to be very good at it. But everyone, however bad you imagine you are initially, everyone can develop that muscle of sustained, silent, present moment awareness. And what really helps build that confidence in that skill is realizing how healing and pleasant it is in a subtle way. Like, it feels right. It feels good. And it makes the heart and mind, it's both healing, but it also, like the residual, what's left over from that practice, those practices, especially gradually over time, is we live with greater sensitivity, which cuts both ways. I mean, in terms of becoming a wiser, kinder human being, sensitivity is really essential. I mean, I can't say this for sure, but it seems like we should be able to say there's really no deepening of wisdom and compassion without greater sensitivity. It seems that that's true, you know. So I'd like to say it definitively, but you know, I can't say it definitively because I don't really know, but it seems so true in my own life. It's hard to be wise and compassionate when I'm not feeling that more profound exposure, sensitivity. But it's also hard to handle being really sensitive, feeling everything, sensing more and more as we move through life, interact, do what we have to do. The sensitive heart's constantly being touched. I might have mentioned this last week, but you know, growing up as a Catholic, a lot of the statues I had in my bedroom, you know, the saints, they had the way the traditionally got set up in Catholicism is the saints had their hearts a few inches out of their chest. You know, you probably have seen those statues where they've got this like heart sitting right here, but not inside, not covered under the clothes, but it's like exposed. And it's for me a really powerful spiritual image of a wise person, a saintly person is somebody who has learned not to be afraid of sensitivity. And that's the unavoidable fruit of developing more concentration, more samadhi in your meditation practice. So if you don't want to become sensitive, you might want to do something else with your time than meditate. Because you think, you know, no, that's just something I do for that hour in the morning or that 30 minutes in the morning. But it's going to affect who you are, just like everything affects who we are. You know, we put, especially things we do with a lot of intentionality, really have an effect on who we are going forward. And it's not like we can put things into compartments. It affects, you know, just the mind, the heart, as it goes forward. And then that sensitivity is how we learn and how we develop wisdom and forgiveness and patience and kindness and all the beautiful qualities. Sensitivity is what actually provokes the deepening. So if you don't want to deepen, don't want to become wiser and kinder, then do things that lead to insensitivity. You know, distractedness, superficiality, denial, distraction, you know, and then you won't have to learn. We'll be kind of a creature of habit. We'll do the same things we've done before, get similar results that we've got before. Just kind of spinning our wheels, so to speak. Annie Dillard says, how we spend our day, of course, is how we spend our lives. And I want to emphasize this, you know, it's not easy to develop these skills of quieting and settling because we've gotten addicted to the juiciness of agitation and excitement, and it's like we scare ourselves. Oh God, I got to make that phone call. I mean, little things like that, you know, and then but we feel a little bit alive, like I'm the one who didn't make that phone call that I should have made 2 days ago. You know, it's like that squeeze, that tension is, oh, I recognize that, that's me. You know, it's like, but we don't recognize the body and mind released, calm. It's like, who's that? It's like, nothing's there. And in a weird way, we're afraid of things being settled. Not because it's dangerous, of course, but because it's unfamiliar. Like, to experience our mind and body released to some, you know, to a greater degree than it normally is, it's like new territory. Like an altered state. Like, whoa. Can I live my life like this? I mean, really, those things come in. because like I said, we do feel a little semi-transparent when we're really settled. It's like we feel delicate in a way. We're not actually, but that's the only way our normal mind can interpret our kind of energetic experience, like, oh, I must be way too fragile for this world. And a lot of times when we're in that state, we sort of wrongly think, oh, I gotta juice this up somehow. So we turn the radio on, or we bring up some thoughts. But we almost, not necessarily consciously, but unconsciously, we disturb the peace because we somehow think it doesn't belong in this world. And so what we want to do is actually check out for ourselves. You don't want to believe that it belongs in this world, but you want to see, like, how is it for me when I become more calm, when I value calmness, I value settledness, I value that kind of being gathered or collected, or, I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, one of the better translations for the word samadhi, the Pali word samadhi, is unification of the heart. It's like the heart isn't fragmented, it's like collected. And all aspects of our mind and heart are in the service of just being connected with the way it is, as opposed to, different parts, different aspects doing different things. Ajahn Sushito, another British Buddhist monk, says it's like not that he would know, but he uses it as an example, the Chicago City Council, with all the different strong personalities, let's say, and these three want to do this, and these three think that's not important and want to do something else, and somebody's got the they're all trying to get the microphone. And then, but when there's samadhi, the subjective felt sense of our heart, mind, and then it affects the body, is that like everything is working together. Nothing is in opposition to anything. And that harmonizing feels really good in a subtle way. And you can see how it promotes physical health too. Because, physically the body reflects how the mind is. So if the mind is disturbed, agitated, well then the body is going to express that, mirror that in some ways. And just the opposite, when the mind's settled, unified, the body is like in this bath almost of that settledness. And the Buddha uses that in some of the instructions, that when you do get that sense of well-being, right, you want to really embody that sense of well-being that comes from concentration, from samadhi, and actively encourage, invite it spreading throughout any aspect of the mind and body, so that our subjective sense is that there's nothing not touched by that good sense of well-being. And then that's really what we might call like feeling collected, or feeling unified, or feeling all here, And we want to, when I mentioned a bit ago, about a shift in values, we want to see that as, in a sense, like our birthright. Oh, this is the way to be human. Not kind of our normal way, which is, like I said, agitated mostly, fragmented, distracted. But that we want to aspire, we want to develop the heart so that more and more, as we do our life, even during difficult times, we just have that sense of being gathered, not fragmented, settled, gentle. But gentle doesn't mean weak, right? We can be really more strong. And when you run into people who are in that place, there's a certain power to what they say and do, right? When somebody is really like in their skin, in their place, unified, connected, integrated, and they say something, there's some power, some almost like magnetism in their presence. In the same way, if someone just seems all over the place and disconnected, and they express an opinion, we kind of hold it differently. Like, yeah, that's probably, a momentary whatever, and this person was this wild mind right now. Who knows what will come out next. But somebody who's gathered, collected, just has that sense of measuredness. Now, I know we can sometimes almost like want to imitate it, but obviously that's why I mentioned in the guided sit, it's so important to understand that one of the supporting causes is relaxation. Because really what we're doing is we're recognizing and aligning with a natural process. And I gave the example like of a snow globe. It's not like trying really hard to get all the little particles floating around in the snow globe, really wanting them to settle. That doesn't speed it up. Leaving alone is what speeds up the settling, right? And like, if we really value the snow globe not being, all the particles floating in that fixed solution, whatever that is, well then we really value, like we understand, oh yeah, just leave it alone. Trust the natural settling process. And that's sort of what we're learning. And that's why that recognizing the wholesomeness, the pleasure of that receptivity, that it's, like I mentioned, that coming together of valuing relaxation, but also valuing presence. Because if we're not present, then the mind can be unconsciously stirring things up. But when we're present, and then the habit to stir things up gets triggered for whatever reason, well, that's going to be seen clearly in the presence, so the present moment, right? The mind that's present, that's awake. Oh, you want to think that thought. You want to poke over here. You want to, whatever, do a backflip. And seen as, yeah, you can do that, but it's not needed. It's not helpful. It's not onward leading to settling. It's onward leading to disturbance and agitation. And it's not like, again, it's not about getting tight or parental and, okay, I'm going to get in there and I'm going to really teach my mind what's right and what's wrong. And that's kind of, you'll catch that. A lot of us, especially the type A's in the room, right? Will catch that. Habit will integrate our meditation practice. I just got to get in control of this wild thing. It just needs discipline. We need a good drill sergeant. And eventually it will get beaten out of you because it doesn't work. It doesn't work, but we think it should work. And it sort of works in some places in this kind of relative world or grosser, but it doesn't really work that well there either. But we can imagine it works. Those of you who've raised kids, it's like, it works maybe in a moment, but there are consequences to it. So it's not even clear whether in the end it was the right thing to do. To kind of like, hey, I'm bigger than you. You're going to do what I say. I was a classroom teacher for elementary school age students back in the 80s and a little bit in the 90s. And you realize this. And how important it is to create an environment where we're all on board with the same values. And it's not so different than our meditation. It's less about like, okay, I'm going to do this, and more about creating an environment where there's shared values that we all agree, like all aspects of our heart and mind agree. Oh yeah, I do like the idea of settling. And even if you've never really been calm ever in your life and you don't know what I'm talking about, you do know what it's like to not be calm, to be agitated. And even from that experience, we can aspire, well, that would be nice to drop that. I wonder what that would be like. What would that be like to not be anxious, to not be afraid, to feel whole instead of feeling alienated or fragmented or disconnected. What would that feel like? What are all these people talking about who have these, experiences of healing? Right? So it's not that hard for us to get interested. This is from the Buddha. It's in Dhammapada, this, and a few places in the suttas. Just as an arrowsmith shapes an arrow to perfection, so does the wise person shape the mind, which is fickle, unsteady, vulnerable, and erratic. How good it is to rein in the mind, which is unruly, capricious, rushing wherever it pleases. The mind so harnessed will bring one happiness. Now, words like harnessed, or rein it in, it's not about willpower. It's really more the subtle work of integrating around a value. Like really, and remember, initially, it may be you're not trying to impose the value. Initially, it'd be like, well, let me just get interested in the value of calm and peace and see if that works for me. So you don't want to, it doesn't work, this sort of jumping from one belief to another belief. The Buddha's path is much more about this, you could call it independence. And the famous phrase from the suttas, the discourses is, ehipassiko, come and check it out. You got to check this out so that your own experience will be your guide forward. I mean, I'm saying something that you can then check out. So connecting with the teachings are really important. But then you got to check it out. And, some of you, have maybe realized this even in terms of your participation at Common Ground and other sources of connecting with the Buddhist teachings, that, because it is kind of interesting just to hear about them. Who was this guy? What did he say? But eventually you got to take what you're hearing and you got to use your own experience. Yeah, we all have a mind, a heart, a body. So let me check it out. Like when I take what I've heard, I think about it enough so I can see if it applies. And what's the effect of this application of these teachings, these ideas, on my present moment experience? What does it set in motion? Oh yeah, this feels right. This feels onward, leading to what the heart intuits is wholesome, is in the right direction. In the direction of clarity and healing and a deepening of wisdom, a deepening of understanding how it all is. So that we can align, like you could even say that awakening, in a spiritual sense, is an alignment with the way it is. We're aligning. Of course, we think we're already aligned with the way it is. But then truthfully, we realize, yeah, but I actually haven't spent a lot of my energy to really, in a more subtle way, get clear about the way it is. I've just presumed my understanding of the way it is the way it is. Which is why we have a world like the way we have. Or even our personal relationships with our partners and friends, as nice as they may be in moments, just how conflict arises, because we all think we know the way it is. So it must mean the other person's wrong. Boy, if only I could tell them. But they don't want to listen, I should just force it. Make them understand. Before we end today, I wanted to share a really wonderful book. This is Bhante Gunaratana's book. I think I've mentioned it before. He's a Sri Lankan monk who spent most of his adult life now in the States. He was a chaplain, I think, at American University for a while, but he's quite old now, in his early 90s. And way back, he started a monastery in West Virginia, Bhavana Society. And he's taught many years at IMS in Massachusetts, where I teach and where I've done a lot of my practice too. He's semi-retired now, although he's just a ball of energy, always has been, really bright bulb. When you see him, you're just like, because he's not a big person, but he just has so much brightness and love, and just kind of nice person to be around. Anyway, his book is 8 Mindful Steps to Happiness. He's written many books. This one is about the Buddhist Eightfold Path. And remember, 1/3 of the Eightfold Path is about Samadhi. Why Samadhi? And so this is the chapter, a section from the chapter on that. And he just has a nice list of setting up your practice and really this sense of shift in values. So the first one here is, for the period of your meditation, give up all thoughts of attachment to situations, ideas, people, and habits. Do not think of your family, friends, relatives, job, income, bills, investments, properties, or responsibilities. Tell yourself, I choose to spend this very special period of time to better myself. I did not sit down on this cushion to think of all my regular thoughts. I will make good use of this time. Right, so this is just that intention, and I would take it quite literally. So when you sit at home tomorrow, whenever next time you sit, then just take 30 seconds, a minute at the most, really, and just remind yourself, oh yeah, this is what I'm doing now for the next amount of time that you've put down, decided to use. This is what I'm doing now. I know that I have to figure this out of my life or that, but I'm not doing that now. And I know my mind will be inclined to fantasize about this or think about that, but that's not what I'm doing. That's not why I'm here. I'm really here to learn something I haven't learned before about Samadhi, and then more generally about the way it is, like the way it is that I haven't yet seen. We're not so interested in seeing what we've already seen. We want to see like what comes from the stability of present moment awareness. We want to see the subtlety of what's always been here, but we just haven't seen because of the lack of interest and the lack of being settled. So you got to get clear about like why you're doing what you're doing, because intention really matters. And if you're just doing that, doing your morning sit or whatever to be a good Buddhist, it won't have that much effect, or to be better than your partner at meditation, or whatever it is, because you think you should do it and you'll feel guilty if you don't. Because that just sets in motion, more neurotic stuff. So take some time to get clear about why you're doing it. It's really appropriate to touch into your deepest aspiration every once in a while, like once a day at least. What do I want to do with this human life? What's really going to be important? Like on my deathbed, what will really have mattered? That I listen to the news? It's not that you never want to listen to news, but, it's like, what will really matter in the end? Because it matters now then. The second point he makes here is, do not worry about anything you may have left undone, or about things you may have done incorrectly, or about ways you may have offended someone. Remind yourself that the past is gone, and what's done cannot be undone. And this is really about the power of forgiveness, and about like learning not to be afraid of what you might call guilt, but we can transform any sort of remorse or regret or guilt into something really wholesome, like, oh yeah, that happened. So we're not denying like what's disturbed or unfinished, as like we're being haunted by mistakes we've made, for example. We're not in denial of that, but it's almost like we're saying to whatever is moving in our heart when we're about to meditate, oh yeah, what's done has been done. So, it's like we're welcoming all that, but it's like, good, that's good information, that, oh yeah, when I did that, now I have this yucky feeling. It's like, okay, we connect the dots. We're not trying to push it away, but we're really clear, yeah, that's over. And what's left is this feeling of remorse, let's call it. And I'm happy to have that feeling of remorse, right? We don't, like if you said something really unskillful to your partner or to a good friend, and then, maybe even immediately you knew it was a stupid thing to have said, but it's actually good to know it was a stupid thing and that it was hurtful, and that, in a sense, in this relative sense, you're responsible for taking care of that harm, even if you don't know how to do that, because a lot of times it's not clear how to make amends or how to make, support the healing of the relationship. But we have the capacity to be okay about that feeling of it being unfinished or unresolved. We don't have to be afraid of wholesome remorse. Oh yeah. I mean, it's because otherwise it's like we expect perfection and we hate ourselves, or we have to deny imperfection, like that I'm capable of making a mistake. Oh, so I am. And that's where the forgiveness comes in. And it's a really good time. Again, it doesn't have to take more than a few seconds, but we're just like, I'm a human being. I'm an imperfect human being. And I forgive myself as best I can for all of what's unfinished. Any remorse that I'm feeling, mistakes that are still reverberating. I forgive myself. I'm going to do better as much as I can. And I don't want to forget these mistakes. That's how I do better. It's like this, like an array of places of remorse is what helps us navigate our lives. Like it's like a radar system. Watch out. What's happening out here is similar to that ache in your heart from that old wound. So it's like an early warning system. You've made a mistake in this kind of vicinity before. Pay attention. And then his next point here is, spend a few minutes cultivating thoughts of loving kindness to make the mind feel pleasant and better able to concentrate. Then take deep breaths. And this point to me means that whatever our mood or attitude is, it can shift. We have the capacity, whatever our particular mood is right now, to have a positive attitude. Right? Can't we, like, for example, gratitude can be related to a positive attitude. Can't we be grateful that we're here? We can be grateful that the rain has come and refilling some of the aquifers that we all depend on, the groundwater, and let alone the plants that like it after a couple years of drought. There's so many things. We can be grateful that our health is good enough to be here, whether you're online or here in person. We can be grateful for our interest in bettering ourselves through the practices from the Buddhist teachings. There's so many things we can be grateful for. It doesn't mean that our lives are perfect, right? And we can value relaxation. So there's just the different ways of shifting our attitude, like caring about our lives. Even if we have a strong habit, like some of us do, towards self-hatred, we can know that tendency towards self-hatred or shame is there, and we can care about, oh, that's really painful, and I care about that. Right? So there's ways to shift into a positive attitude, and that's a good thing to do at the beginning of a sit. And then just one more thing here. And it's really about, I mentioned this earlier, about this devotion, I guess is a nice word, to the present moment. And in a way, like, if there's going to be an enemy, the enemy is distractedness or forgetting that I value the present moment awareness. And that interest in remembering, that's a very particular kind of effort. Like, it doesn't require getting physically tight. So if you're getting physically tight in your meditation, it's because you misunderstand what wise effort is. I'm just trying to remember that it's like this now. That this, whatever I'm aware of, is unfolding lawfully because of causes and conditions that nobody sort of personally set in motion, but yet it's like this now, feels like this now. This is what's being known here and now. We're just trying to keep that in mind, and we're, even if it's just initially borrowed faith, like from the Buddhist teachings, that this is transforming, like the continuity of present moment awareness really is a game changer. And we're checking that out. Now, some of us have been checking it out for a while, so we have a lot of confidence. It is a game changer. It leads to insight, it leads to just a whole different way of being that feels so right. But initially, not everybody has that kind of confidence. But we can be interested. It just logically makes sense that I'd want to check out, like, what happens when I have continuity of present moment awareness, as opposed to living my life with distraction, lost in thought. I mean, it's just logically like, oh yeah, I should probably check that out before I die. What is it like? What happens when we develop a continuity of present moment awareness? So that's a nice place to leave it, going home now. Because it doesn't have to be just during your formal sitting times. It could be any time.